Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. Today, we will take a quick look at where Canadian insider sentiment stands in light of the trade war, the Iran war, the Russia-Ukraine war, and I'm going to take a look at a relatively new player in the Canadian market who has been buying resource stocks over the past 3 months. But first, please let me remind you that this is not financial advice. We are not licensed financial advisors. Before you make any investment decision, please consult a licensed financial advisor. Nothing in this podcast or in Inc. research reports or on any of our websites is a recommendation to buy or sell securities. So many wars, but Canadian insiders remain bullish. We see that by looking at the Market Inc. report, which is available on incresearch.com and canadianinsider.com. And here we are. The Inc. indicator is found in the report on this chart, the bottom part of the chart, the second chart. And the indicator looks at the number of stocks with key insider buying versus key insider selling over the past 60 days. Importantly, the indicator is now above 100%. So I'll zoom in on that a little bit. Again, it's the chart on the bottom. There are two charts. The top chart is the Inc. Canadian Insider Index, and the bottom chart is the Inc. Sentiment Indicator. What's really remarkable is that this dark blue line in the second chart is still above 100%, despite the Inc. Canadian Insider Index being up 30% so far this year. The Canadian Insider Index is our index that looks at 50 stocks listed on the TSX, preferred by insiders that are highly ranked in the Inc. Edge process. It's a quantitative process, and you can find out more about it at index.incresearch.com. It has well over 10 years of track record now, and you can dig into that at our index site. But it's had a good year, and what's really impressive, though, is that insiders are still in a bullish mood. Now, they were even more bullish midsummer following a correction in share prices, but they're still upbeat. And that's in contrast to U.S. insider sentiment, which continues to signal significant overvaluation of U.S. stocks. But that has been the case for many years. American insiders have been happy to take profits as passive investors and retail traders push stocks higher. In a sense, U.S. insiders have been withdrawing liquidity from the U.S. market as other players have been pushing it in. And in Canada, actually, insiders have been, on a stock-by-stock basis, have actually been adding some liquidity. They've been parting with their cash and taking shares. So just the opposite of kind of what we're seeing in the U.S. So before I get into the big screen for today, I want to take a look at two of the names in terms of how they're performing from our July 2nd of the big screen. That big screen podcast aired on July 2nd, and we published the written report on July 7th. Both Inc. Research and Canadian Insider have the big screen reports. Here I'm looking at the Canadian Insider, where you can find it under the big screen section. And this is the report that we published on July 7th after our July 2nd podcast. At the time, I will also point out that we were telling you that insider buying had surged in the gold miners. There was a lot of pessimism about gold miners and, the Fed's going to hike rates, and gold miners peaked in the winter and it's all over, and the tourists were rushing over into semiconductors, and we were saying, well, this is a big insider buying signal, and we saw this in the chart of the gold indicator. So in terms of stocks on the big screen back in early July, McFarlane Lake Mining was our first stock that we highlighted in the big screen series, and it is not disappointed. McFarlane Lake Mining is up 172% since the podcast. And helping it, I think, was its news of a new resource estimate for the Juby Gold Project. Determined there were, or estimated there were 1.11 million gold ounces in the indicated category and another 5.06 million ounces in inferred. Now, they announced a financing after the news, a $15 million flow-through hard dollar mix. And we've also seen some insider selling on the rally, not unusual, but it has impacted our outlook ranking. McFarlane Lake Mining was one of our top ranked stocks when we did the initial podcast in July. And now it's in the mixed category. So what does that mean? Now it is in the middle of the pack. It is in that 40% of stocks in the mixed category. And just as a reminder, what the InkEdge Outlook ranking system does, it puts stocks in categories of buckets: sunny, mostly sunny, mixed, cloudy, and rainy. And the sunny is the 10% highest, and that's a group of stocks that we expect to outperform based off of our track record and based off of the research we did to build it. And our live track record is the Canadian Insider Index, so you can take a look at that and see how it's been doing. But McFarlane Lake Mining now has slipped from the top 10% to the middle 40%. And what does that mean? Well, let's just, for example, take a look at how we apply the InkEdge in the Canadian Insider Index. It's a quantitative rule that's automatic. And what we do is if a stock moves out of the top 30%, if it's no longer sunny or mostly sunny, it is removed from the index. Now, this mixed category doesn't necessarily mean the stock is going to go down or it's over. What it means, though, it's in a group of stocks that we expect to basically perform with the market. But because the group is so big, you're always going to have stocks that do better and you're going to have stocks that do worse. So we'll have to see how McFarlane Lake Mining does here. It could surprise and continue to run, or it could stall or consolidate. We'll have to see, but it is in that mixed category now. So that's I think a good example of how you can use the InkEdge to put in context stocks that you are following. And again, as I mentioned, the Canadian Insider Index is the track record of the InkEdge process, and it has been outperforming the S&P this year, which is up 13% year to date, and the TSX Composite, which is up about 16%. And so with the Canadian Insider Index up 30, it's a pretty good outperformance. Over 5 years, the Canadian Insider Index has beat the S&P by about 100% over that whole time. That's not annualized; it's just the outperformance over that period. So our track record for the InkEdge is there for everyone to check out. You can download the returns and the values of the index from our index site. So by looking at the InkEdge and keeping an eye on it, it can help you put your conviction in a name to the test. You can talk about it with your financial advisor. Again, these are not buy and sell recommendations. We have a number of financial advisors who use our service, and they can use the InkEdge as part of their body of knowledge that they can consult with and look at in terms of assessing a stock's prospects. The InkEdge is updated every night on inkresearch.com. And if you're a Canadian Insider Club member on canadianinsider.com, you can download a Ink Company PDF report to get the updated Canadian InkEdge or US InkEdge ranking for a stock. You have 50 of those a month, and you can find out the most recent InkEdge ranking for a stock. We do post the monthly rankings for stocks on Canadian Insider, and that's for free for everyone. But to get an updated one, just download an Ink Company PDF. So that was a great performance for the first stock that we highlighted in the big screen. And then look at our laggard. That's one of the things with insider signals. Or hopefully, you're going to see some that really outperform, but they're not all going to outperform. And that's why a diversified approach is important. Having all your eggs in one basket, right? So an example of the laggard from our early July big screen is Visionary Copper and Gold Mines. This is a Newfoundland focused junior. It is thinly traded, and it is a name I took a small position in a week or two ago. Now, this week, the stock has had a bit of a rally. They appointed a fellow named Jason Flight as VP Exploration, and the stock has moved up a bit. Back in the big screen, we highlighted at the time that the stock had seen some significant shareholder buying. And that buying was by a fellow named Ross Jennings, who runs the Quaternary Group family office. Now, why would we follow somebody like Ross Jennings? Because typically, Inc. follows company officers and directors, insiders who are working at the company or have governance oversight of the company. Well, it really caught our attention that he showed up for a couple of reasons. He's based offshore, as far as I know. He arrived on our radar screens in 2024 with a position in Millennial Potash. And you can see that this is from Inc. Research. This is his holdings chart, his holdings in Millennial Potash. And his first position was back in 2024, and he's continued to build. I thought this was important to see a foreign player come in. We had been talking about Canada being well positioned really since the start of the Russia-Ukraine war because of all the implications that had for resource scarcity, that the countries were going to need resources if the world is becoming a more hostile and place, and that resources were going to become less secure. We continued to develop that theme in 2023 as the Middle East started to heat up. We noted that there were challenges to U.S. hegemony in the region, that the U.S. was facing a challenge to its power in the Middle East, and that this would be a test for U.S. naval dominance, and that had implications for really the persistence of U.S. reserve currency. We never suggested that it would lose its reserve currency status, but we did suggest back in 2023 that gold was going to become a competitor to the U.S. dollar in reserve asset allocations, and part of that was because of what was happening in the Middle East, but earlier because of the frozen assets that happened in the wake of the start of the Russia-Ukraine war in 2022. That began at that point with the invasion of Russian forces, and the Europeans and the Americans froze Russian assets, and that really kind of kicked things off for gold. But as the world became more conflicted, this diversification into gold became even stronger. So we've been looking for signs of foreign participation in the Canadian market, and seeing Mr. Jennings show up was caught our attention. But probably beyond the geopolitics and the changing world, which is we'll have to see how things play out. Probably the best reason to keep an eye on Mr. Jennings' activity as an insider is his track record. Since he opened his first filing in Millennial Potash on August 21st, 2024, stock is up 1,345%. And he has also written about the stock. He has a Substack. There are a number of Ross Jennings on Substacks. I believe his handle is Ross Jennings 1. Now, I do not know Mr. Jennings. I don't have an association with him. This is just some background for those who may not be familiar with him. It's always interesting when someone is contributing their thoughts. And most recently, he's done some math work on Millennial Potash, so that's interesting. Not an endorsement of that piece, but it is a source where you can get his perspective on his views on the market. But importantly for us, though, he has taken additional positions in stocks in the Canadian market. And that's what I'm going to talk about here today. In terms of visionary copper and gold, he has done a small amount of buying since our last big screen. And the stock remains in our top 10%. But today I'm going to also look at two other stocks that he has been buying. To do that, I will use the players list on inkresearch.com, which I've pulled up right here. It's where you can build a watch list of insiders and be alerted via email or CSV file when they have new filings that meet your filing criteria. Of course, you can also build a watch list for companies, but today I'm going to focus on the players list. Now, if you have a players list on Ink Research, just make sure to click on the on button to ensure you're getting it delivered to your inbox. Okay, so on this players list, it lists we've done public market here, code 10. You can see the order of buying. You can move over to his profile page, and most of it has been in P2 Gold. It's a stock that we have featured in the August 14th Morning Ink Report. And over the past 3 months, he has spent just over $1.3 million buying P2 Gold shares in the public market. Now, the company is focused on its 100% owned copper gold GABS project within the Walker Lane trend in Western Nevada. The stock is up 31% over the past 6 months and is traded as high as $1.26.5 recently. P2 Gold grabbed the 11th spot in our July top mining report. Now, we'll be publishing the August top mining report on August 31st. So we'll have to see where P2 Gold stands. Still is in the sunny category, so it's looking pretty good for it to make the list, but we'll have to see. A 2025 preliminary economic assessment for GABS envisioned an open pit operation with an after-tax net present value at a 5% discount of US $942.9 million. And that was using a base case of $2,350 US an ounce gold, $29 US ounce silver, and US $4.50 copper. Over an estimated 14.2-year mine life, annual production expected to average 109,000 ounces of gold, 175,000 ounces of silver, and 33 million pounds of copper. They've released additional reverse and diamond drilling results this month, and they plan to publish an updated resource estimate in Q4. So we'll keep an eye out for that. The other stock that Mr. Jennings has been buying is Surge Battery Metals. Over the past 3 months in the public market, he has spent approximately $204,000 buying shares, and we featured the stock in our morning report on August 20th. On May 14th, Surge announced an updated mineral resource estimate for its Nevada North Lithium project, a joint venture with ASX-listed Evolution Mining, with Surge holding 67.5% and Evolution holding the rest. The report estimates a measured and indicated resource of 10.51 million tons of lithium carbonate equivalent, with an additional 3.1 million tons of LCE in the inferred category. On July 8th, Surge announced that it had analyzed earlier drilling, which confirmed geochemical continuity of cesium and rubidium across the deposit footprint. So now they're working to integrate these cesium and rubidium results into the upcoming preliminary feasibility study, according to CEO Greg Reamer. So we will also be open for that. Now, Neely, which is the stock symbol of Surge Battery Metals, is still in the top 10% of our InkEdge ranking. So we'll be looking for that, see if it makes it into the August top mining report. Looking pretty good for it. We'll be posting the report part of our today's big screen within the next 24 hours. Still writing it up. So in the meantime, you can check out the Ink Merch Mart. I'm wearing some of the merch right now, and it's designed by Ink employees. We're kind of doing the Ink Merch Mart one way is to show real people running Inc. We're not a AI based shop. We're a people shop, and that's just kind of a little addition we've added to it. So if you have some time, check that out. If you are not a member of Canadian Insider Inc. Research, you can join Canadian Insider for free as an intro member. You get a starter watch list, and you can get access to some other tools. So I would encourage you to do that. In the meantime, I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the summer, and we will see you again on the next big screen. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you again.